In this video, I show you Dungeons and Lasers Encounters Kickstarter that's happening right now. But before we get into today's video, just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of June of 2022, we have the Dynamod Magnetic Dungeon Starter Box Set worth $170. 3 Dungeon Lab all-in pledges. 3 Core Set plus Stretch Goal pledges for Printable Fantasy NPCs Kickstarter. A pledge for the Snap Ships Kickstarter that's starting in July. $100 to go towards a crowdfunding campaign that the Patreon supporters are voting upon right now. And finally, a base pledge for this current Kickstarter of Encounters. I've made multiple videos for Dungeons and Lasers and Archon Studios. Go ahead and check out my playlist to see those previous videos. They've made a lot of really affordable and great terrain, and I'll continue to make videos for them because I think they're a great company and they haven't been hampered by a lot of the production issues because they do all of the production for their own projects rather than relying on companies overseas. Because of that, I think it's some of the most affordable terrain as well as affordable miniatures that I've ever seen. And so go ahead and use the links below to go to their Kickstarter page and get in on the current Kickstarter. So they've really branched out and done something different with the Encounters campaign because some of their previous campaigns have been either games or dungeons. So in this set, they are branching out and basically creating terrain for encounters that you can use for RPGs, for skirmish games, basically in outdoor settings. And it's also, for the first time, including a neoprene mat that is going to be gridded at 30 millimeters, and that is going to provide spacing that all of this terrain is going to easily fit on so that you can use that grid if you choose to rather than using a ruler. That's going to be super handy for Dungeons and Dragons. I use a gridded map for that, and I think this set really does work out super well for those games. So Archon Studios did send me the hills that come in the field set, and I do have a painting tutorial if you want to use the timestamp below to go skip to that section. But these pieces are really detailed and super easy to paint. I'm used to painting 3D printed terrain, which you can't get this level of detail unless you are using a resin printer. I use an FDM printer for all of my terrain, so it is great to have this much detail in all of these hills and pieces. Also, it is a joy to paint, super fast, super easy to get onto the table, and I chose this color scheme which works out really well with not only this neoprene mat that you see before me, which is actually for Kill Team, but also the one that's going to be included with this campaign. Also, you can see here that they do stack on top of each other, and you can get them to form and fit a little bit right next to each other to have a lot of variability. And I think you do have enough pieces here to provide some cover and some variation onto your 2.5 foot by 2.5 foot mat that they're going to be providing with each of the scenarios. These trees actually aren't the ones that's coming in the campaign. These are just stand-ins. These are from Printable Scenery. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check it out here. But the trees, at least from the photos that I saw from the campaign, do look really good and integrate really well with all of this terrain. Also, you're going to get a little campsite and a bunch of models as well, especially that Tarrasque model looks awesome. Now, I'm going to be walking through the campaign just so that you can see what is in each of the levels and which one might be the best for you. Now, I did include here these boxes, which are the stretch goals from the Woodhaven Kickstarter that they had a while back, and these are going to be an optional buy-in. I would highly encourage you to grab these. Typically, I don't get add-ons because there's plenty in the base set, and that's going to be true with this Kickstarter as well. Basically, when Archon Studios do Kickstarters, the stretch goals that they unlock is oftentimes worth the price of entry, even by themselves. And that was the case with Woodhaven. They came out with this set, which I think is super affordable, less than $50 US. You can get the buy-in for this kit and set, and you're getting a ton of miniatures. You're getting a lot of terrain. So if you are using these sets for Dungeons and Dragons, this is going to give you a lot of other monsters that you can use, as well as NPCs and heroes. Like I mentioned in all of my videos, Archon Studios has some of the best deals in terms of financially that is in the gaming market. And you're guaranteed to get these miniatures sooner than Blacklist Games miniatures, at least. So let's go ahead and go over to the computer and I can walk you through the campaign. So Encounters is actually on Gamefound, not on Kickstarter. And as of filming, this is only 24 hours after they launched, and they've already raised over 300,000 euros. Typically, they raise over $1 million in their campaigns, and I think that this campaign definitely will reach that, and that's why their stretch goals is so awesome, because they have so many. Now, this is going to be a relatively short campaign, only 2 weeks. And once I post this video publicly, there will only be about 11 days left. So jump on this if you do want it. So they are throwing in this huge Tarrasque for every pledge. And basically they are emphasizing the ability to throw together an encounter relatively quickly. And I think that really is the case. I actually do think that it is miniature friendly, because the strange thing is, considering the amount of hills that are a part of miniature gaming, a lot of hills actually won't hold miniatures on top of them. And so these hills are actually pretty flat so that miniatures can stay on them with ease, but still looking really, really cool. Tons of miniatures are going to be provided, and then again 30mm square, which I appreciate, slightly larger than the 1 inch by 1 inch square. And here's just an example of some of their models that you see in an encounter. So there are 4 different encounters that you can have, and the Elven Woods is the one that I was primarily showing you with the hills, and that's the one that they sent me. But you are getting a number of things, because I only received the hills, and I only received 2 of each of the styles. So in the base box, you're going to be getting 3. Also, you're going to be getting 6 trees, which I think these trees look really cool. And the neat thing about them is they're going to come with a base that can attach them onto the hills, so that you can stick them on the hills without them looking weird, but it'll be integrated into it. You're also getting this camp set so that you can have an ambush while your party is sleeping out in the woods. And then the second set, which I think is really cool, is the Swamps of Doom. So the neoprene mat functions as a swamp, and then you're placing these growths throughout it. You're also getting a boat and sort of these dock-like things which they can walk along, so really fantastic as well. The third set is the Land of the Giants, where you have sort of these ruins based off of these statues, which I think looks really cool. And of course you can mix and match any of these sets together. And then finally, you do have the Creatures Pack, 32 models so far. Again, if you are running a D&D campaign or any other campaign, I think having the variety of these monsters is incredible. Also, make sure to check out their dragon line from their previous Kickstarters, which I think is great. And this wyvern is super cool. It shows them clutching one of the heroes in its claws. So I think this is really different from some of their other dragons that they have come out with. Here's a shambling mound, which looks fantastic. So this is a great deal if you consider how much it would cost to buy these individual models from Wizards of the Coast or some of the other manufacturers. I love that you have this fungal queen, you have some fungals here, some mushrooms, as well as these centaurs, a group of centaurs. You got these wolves that you can naturally run into in the woods. You also have these giant bugs. So I just think overall this is a fantastic set to round out having some wandering monsters or random encounters in the woods. Also, this would be great for Frostgrave, having random monsters show up as well. So this is a great set too. And again, if you purchase that stretch goal box, you're going to have even more monsters that you can have in your set. So here are the different pledge levels. This is the starter set. So you get to pick any two. You can even double up and say, hey, I want 2 of the Elven Woods boxes. But again, I would highly suggest grabbing one of the terrain boxes, and then the creature pack I think is a must. So for only about 50 euros more, or $50 US more, you are doubling the number of boxes. So this is a much better savings, and you can grab all 4 of these. So this is a great deal, I think, and definitely a better deal than this base box, because each one of these is going to be about 50 euros, whereas here you're basically picking up one of these base boxes for free when you buy 3 of them for about 50 euros each. And then you have the hero level, where again it just becomes a better and better deal, because now for only 200 euros you're getting 6, so you can double up on 2 of these packs. So let's say you grab a creatures pack, and then you want 2 of the Elven Woods and 2 of the Swamps of Doom, just to have even a larger size or even more terrain. At this pledge level, you're basically getting 2 additional boxes for free when you're buying 4 of them at 50 euros each. Again, with all of these sets, you are getting the Tarask, and again, the stretch goals is an insane deal. Here is the legendary pledge. You're getting about half off, because not only are you getting 6 of these in total, but you are also getting a ton of other items that were produced from previous Kickstarters. So this is the sewer set, this is the Woodhaven streets, the mansion, lava caverns, stone tower, all this kinds of stuff. You're getting this Phoenix, Ghost Dragon, you're getting 2 giants, you're getting Nubbles, Bulbo, all kinds of stuff for your terrain. And then, like I said before, the stretch goals in and of themselves, I think, is worth the cost of entry. Even if you weren't getting anything else, you could get the 99 euro pledge level, the base pledge level, just to get the stretch goals. I think it is insane how many stretch goals these campaigns unlock. And look how great the stagecoach is. It's going to be unlocked at 400,000 euros, which I think the campaign is going to definitely hit. But you also have these trees, you have this shaman's tent that's already been unlocked, as well as this swamp hut. You got more miniatures with these harpies. You got a large watchtower, which is great. You got these thorns, giant ants, a Highlander hut. So they just have an insane number of stretch goals that usually unlocks. So these tend to be really good deals. So if you were to pick one set, I definitely do think the Adventure Pledge is your best bang for your buck. But even the Starter Pledge, because of the stretch goals, is going to be a great deal. And then here are the add-ons. And if you did click before the campaign started to follow the campaign, you are receiving this Leshy miniature for free. Otherwise, it's going to cost you 35 euros. You can purchase any of these items. That's automatically going to be in the all-in pledge. For example, this modular river is something you might want to pick. And then if you want extra neoprene mats, you can do that as well. And then catch up on any of these individual sets too. But again, if you're in the all-in, you're receiving all of these as part of that package. And like I mentioned before, I think this stretch goals for 3rd edition for 39 euros is an insane deal. And so you're getting all of these miniatures. I think it is going to integrate really well with the Encounters campaign. So if you want more items, I think this is a really good add-on to put onto your pledge. Now here are the shipping prices, and I think they're being honest. These shipping prices are high, but that is reflective of current shipping prices, so just make sure that you are taking this into consideration as part of your pledge. There is an option for rapid delivery, and that is the shipping of all of the packs that are currently available that was produced in previous Kickstarters. So that is an option. It says it'll be 20 euros more expensive than the regular one, so that might be something that you're interested in. Otherwise, everything is scheduled to deliver May of 2023. And Dungeons and Lasers, because they do produce all of theirs in-house, I have found them to deliver on time. Surprisingly, I typically consider Kickstarters to be doing well if they are a year late, but overall Dungeons and Lasers, they do a fantastic job of delivery. Again, I think it's because they produce everything in-house. So there you go. As you can see, I think this campaign is a great deal, especially if you are into RPGs or miniature skirmish games. I think any of the sets are going to be great. I would highly suggest, again, that you get the miniatures as one of your sets. And then, again, if you can afford it, grab the add-on for the stretch goals from Woodhaven. With that, you're going to have plenty of miniatures, plenty of scenarios to be able to throw at your heroes and your players if you're playing those role-playing games or to play these skirmish games. Use the link below to go to the campaign as well as my Patreon page, and you can get in on the possibility of being chosen to receive a base pledge for encounters. Otherwise, stick around for the painting tutorial, and happy gaming. We'll see you next time. So I go ahead and spray prime everything with this Krylon Camouflage Brown. And this is a dark, really flat brown, which provides a nice, dull, dark color as an undercoating. You can use gray if you want, but I like that since there's plants growing on these rocks that you're going to have a certain amount of mud and dirt that's on there, and that's why I like spray priming it brown. So I'm going to go ahead and now grab this zinc, and you could make these rocks brown instead, or tan and gray, but I am choosing to do gray rocks just because it will contrast against the green plants that are on here already. So go ahead and just do a good brush over with all of the stone, and you want to maintain some of that dark brown as shading, and don't worry about getting your plants colored as well with this gray. It really doesn't matter because we're going to go back over it with green. So you want to just get all of the stones, and again just leaving a good amount of brown underneath as shading. Next, I'm grabbing some slate gray, and I'm actually going to mix it in with the zinc because I want a gray that's in between these two colors, because the slate gray by itself is just too light. And this time around, we're going to dry off our brush. We don't want a ton of this color because we're only just dry brushing a little bit onto here. So mostly we're just hitting the highlights and the corners, whereas before with the zinc we were covering way more of these stones and rocks. And in general, just going in one direction, because this is the only highlight color that we're going to do for the stones. We're not going to do an additional lighter color after this because they're stones, so most of the color is going to go towards the greens for the plants, and these gray rocks function more as background for those brighter colors. So this is relatively simple, don't need a lot of paint for this step, but it just functions as a way of just edging all of the corners, and this terrain does a great job of providing plenty of edges to catch and make lighter, and that is pretty much it. I'm grabbing some forest green and switching over to one of these brushes instead of the hog's hair brush, and now I'm going to go over all of the green that's on top. And here you don't want to have as much of the brown. It's okay to have some of the brown showing through in some of the crevices. You do want to get all of these spots to be fairly green. And if you get some, like, see these strands, if you get those and subsequently you get some onto the stone, that's fine. That's not a big deal, because that can just be algae growing on the side of the rocks. So you can do something like that. And even here, now that I'm doing this part, I see that I missed some of these stones, so I'll have to go back with the gray and touch up on those. But you don't have to be super exact with this. Pretty much just get most of the tops, like what you see me doing here. And even if you cover up some of the rocks, that's okay. It's not, again, not a big deal. The thing with terrain is you're mostly approximating. You're not needing to get it 100%. So some of these I'm leaving as stone, whereas others of it is greenery. You don't have to be super exact with it. And the branches, I'm going to go back because, you know, there's gray and green that's going to get on them. I'm going to go back with the brown later on, so you don't have to worry too much about trying to avoid them at this point. But pretty much this is the process that you're going to do for all of the pieces. And it is a little bit time consuming, but you want to establish a good solid base of green. Now we're grabbing a lighter green, and the version I'm using is festive green, but you can pick any lighter green color that you want. Make sure your brush is dry, because we are now just dry brushing. And because this has just a lot of texture, dry brushing is going to be relatively easy. Just make sure you're not getting it onto the stone that's around it. Alright, so you could stop here with that highlighting, but it doesn't seem a bright enough green to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab some of this apple orchard, which is a pretty bright green, and do some dry brushing with this as well. So this is going to just make it a lot brighter. You're noticing that I'm not putting it on every aspect, just highlighting here and there, so that it just creates a little bit of a different color pattern. Pretty much like so. I'm going to grab some purple rain and some marigold just to provide some colors for flowers and to break up some of this green. And just pick some random plant leaves like this here and just color it different colors. So I've chosen sort of these cabbage looking leaves to be purple. You want to be more sparing with the yellow, because yellow is a really bright and noticeable color. So the eye is naturally drawn to them. So even though this cluster of leaves spreads out more than that, I only color in a little bit of it, because otherwise it would be too powerful. So I'm making it look more like a flower than anything else. And that's pretty much enough color that you need. You don't want to put too much color on there, but go ahead and do that to the rest of the rocks. I'm grabbing some burnt sienna, but basically you can pick any medium shade brown, and using a pretty small sable brush here. And you don't need to worry about the fact that you got all these other colors, like I got this gray from the stone onto the wood. You can still, because enough of the brown from the base coat is showing underneath, and so you're still using that darker brown as your shading. So you just want to highlight all of the branches and roots that are on these models. And because this is the later color, you want to be more careful this time around so that you don't have to go back and touch up the green or the stone as well. So that's why I'm using a smaller brush, more detail brush, because it will save me the hassle of needing to touch up any other paint that I might get on top of some of these other pieces. I think I will come back though with some gray, because for example I missed all of these stones with my initial coloring. Like there's a bunch here that I need to add some gray, so I'll go ahead and do that. But pretty much other than that, you're going to be done with these pieces after doing this brown. Adding some honey brown to the stumps. So here's what the finished product looks like. As you can see, this was relatively quick painting, so this is really easy to get painted and onto your playmat. That's one of the things that I really like about Archon Studios, all of their terrain. Especially as a 3D printer, you don't get any of those print lines that you typically get with FDM printing, and I just love the level of detail and the different colors that you can get on these hills. So even if you haven't ever painted anything, I think following this tutorial you can definitely get these painted up relatively quickly and looking really good like this.